As she said, this is a series of classes that we've been doing. We just started doing these with Goodyear, and we will continue doing them. So if you like what you hear in any of the classes, please let people know that we're doing this, and to check the city's website, watch the papers and stuff for upcoming classes, and we have them posted on our website as well. We teach classes all over the West Valley, and I know me personally and Janet, we get so much enjoyment out of teaching these classes. This truly is the best part of our job, because this is the time where we can just share information that we've learned on everything from identity theft to budgeting to car buying, financial planning, all of it. And just hopefully give people information and tools that they can use to help make smart decisions when it comes to money. I think, as you'll find, you know, when we go through the material tonight, budgeting is one of those things that can be simple. Sometimes it can be really difficult. We may go through periods where we are doing really good with our budget, and then something happens and all of a sudden, you know, goodness, our budget's not really working anymore. So again, as we go through this, you're going to see things that you probably already are doing. Hopefully you'll pick up a couple tips if there's one area that you think you need to improve in. One of the classes that we did in Surprise, we got through all of the material, and this one guy, I said, "What did you think of the class?" He said, "You know, I knew all this." I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "I was really hoping that you could give me the discipline. That's the one thing that I can't do." So as we go through this, again, you know, there are going to be parts where you know, you've got to hold yourself accountable for what you put in your budget, and you know, the more accountable you hold yourself, the better. Okay, in your books or in your packets, there's little booklets that you can follow along. One of the first things that I want to talk about is what is really the benefit to having good money management skills. What benefit do you get out of managing your money well? Not stressing out. And stress, we know what kind of effects that can have on your body. So you're probably going to be healthier if you. Anything else? Never go through bankruptcy. Hopefully, if we can keep that money managed well.
So you certainly would have a much greater sense of calmness or belief that your retirement is going to be there, and so therefore you would have some comfort in that.
Some peace of mind, and maybe achieving a goal of retirement or whatever. That's perfect. That's exactly what comes from managing your money well. Before we really get into the pieces of the budget, I want you to look over some of these questions. What is your approach to handling money? You know, do you dread even thinking of the word budget? A lot of times I associate the word budget with diet. Those are two words that kind of really can go together. Nobody likes to hear diet, right? Just like nobody likes to hear budget. Oh, I got to live on a budget? That means somebody's telling me what I can spend, you know, what I need to save. Nobody likes that word. What are your attitudes about money? Do you tend to be conservative? Or are you just kind of, you know, whatever goes, you know, money comes, money goes, right? Who handles your money at home? Just kind of by a show of hands, just for my information, who's married or has significant other that, okay, so there's more than just you involved in the money-making decisions. That presents a whole new set of challenges. When my husband and I first got married, he was very much the saver. I was the spender. We were constantly doing this over, you know, well, I think we should do this. No, we need to do this. So, yeah, that creates a whole new set of problems. And do you have separate or joint accounts? When we first got married, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, we've always had separate accounts, her and her husband." And I thought, really? Like, I can't even imagine that. My husband and I have always had a joint account. but it works for them. So, really I bring that up because as we go through this, there's not one right way to do this. It's whatever way works for you. Just like dieting, there are different ways that you can achieve the same goals, but it's whatever works for you, what you're going to stick with. Think about what products and services you enjoy spending money on. My husband loves golf, sporting events, that kind of stuff. I tend to like crafty things, concerts. What kinds of things do you like spending money on? In what ways are you a good spender or a bad spender? What's that little vice like I've got to have that item no matter what?
Shoes over here.
Yeah, shoes. Susie likes shoes. See, we're going to let out our secrets, huh? Are you a comparison shopper? Do you use coupons? Some people are really good with that. I can remember my husband was after me about, oh, you should use coupons. You should use coupons. I'm like, I do not have time, patience. I can't sit down and clip coupons and go through all that stuff. That to me, it's not worth the time for me. What changes would you like to make with your spending habits? Think about that and write down one thing, because obviously there's a reason why everybody came for this topic tonight. So think about maybe one area that you'd like to change about either your spending habits or your saving habits or whatever. Just think about what that is, and hopefully by the end of the class we'll give you some tools so you can make that change. Another point that I want to bring up is never lose sight that money is an emotional thing. Would you guys agree with that statement?
No.
You don't think money is an emotional thing? When you, and it might not be so much for you, 95% of purchases are made based on emotion versus based on numbers of this is a sound financial thing. And I can tell you, if somebody's telling me they're taking, if my husband says, well, you can't have that, $200 fund money, I'm going to get pretty emotional about that. It can be very emotional. You kind of recognize that?
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you're looking at where you're spending your money, it may be more difficult for you to cut in certain areas that you might have more of an emotional tie to. Okay, so one of the first things that we need to cover is the differences between needs and wants. So this is where I'm going to ask you guys to play along. Give me some examples of what you would classify as a need. Food.
Yeah.
Gas? Did I hear you say something? No? Okay. Your home, shelter. Okay. How about wants?
Quilting supplies.
Quilting supplies. Okay.
Concerts.
Concerts. Look, y'all are picking on me for my concerts, aren't you? Concerts would be a want, maybe.
Anything above your needs, I guess.
Anything above your needs? Okay, now I'm going to throw a little bit of wrench into that. We said food is a need, right? So I'm going to say, well, I needed food, so I went to, TGI Fridays, right? In every category, and this is where our minds can really play tricks with us. In every category, even in those needs, there is a wide variety of what becomes a need and what becomes a want. I love this one. How about internet? Is internet a need or a want? You would not believe how many, yeah, see, he's cringing. He's going, I need my internet. Are there places you can go to get internet for free? There absolutely is. So that's where you want to look at different categories. And I mean, let's face it, if you're looking at a tight budget and there are cuts that need to be made in what your expenses are, those are some areas that you can look at. Just remember that all of the decisions that you make today may very well have consequences, be them good or bad, down the road. So just keep that in mind. So here's a little quiz that we'll just kind of go over, and you can answer this on your own. Kind of, a little test on how you manage your money. I pay my rent, mortgage, utility bills on time. Always, sometimes, never. I save 10% of my net income. I try to keep 3 months of my net income in reserve for emergencies. I like this. I'll plan ahead for large expenses such as taxes and insurance. I set goals and keep a budget for my net income. I spend no more than 20% of my net income for credit payments, excluding home mortgage, but including car payments. Do they have car payments that are 20%? No, I'm just kidding. Less than 20%. I comparison shop for purchase of most items. Here's a real biggie. I keep track of my daily expenses. I balance my checkbook every month, and I check my credit report at least once a year. Now, I'll write this down for you guys to do later, but if you give yourself 2 points for every always, 1 point for every sometimes, and 0 for never, if you're 8 or below, you need a little work. 9 to 14 is a good effort. And 15 and above, you've got pretty good budgeting skills. I see a couple grins like, okay. Okay, so when we get into actually building the budget, why do we really do that? I mean, we budget to manage our money. You had talked about retirement. That's, a goal that's out there. But would you say most of you have goals of what you want to achieve as far as, financially, or whether it's paying off a credit card or paying off a car, paying off a house? Do you guys have kind of goals in mind, what you want to achieve? Do you have them written down? I'm big on writing down goals. Because if you see, goal setting is really big. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So by having goals written down, you have a clear understanding of where you're going. And again, there I can give an example. My husband and I, as far as long-term financial goals, we want to be in a position financially to retire when we're 55. We know exactly how much of a monthly income we want to have. We have that inflated out. Those are very specific goals. We knew that we wanted to have our daughter's college paid off. It's close to when she graduated. So there are specific things that we have set up. When you go through goal setting, we want you to set SMART goals. And it kind of gives you the little definition there. I had talked about the goal of paying off a credit card. That's an okay goal. How do we make it a SMART goal? You've got to make it specific. I need to pay off my credit card that has a balance of $2,000. When do you want that paid off by? Maybe by December of next year. What is it going to take to get there? I need to put aside $100 a month or $150 a month, whatever it's going to take to get you there. Does that mean if something happens along the way and one month you can't do that, oh no, that's it, we can't do it? No, it just means you need to adjust your goal. Okay, but the goal setting is really important. And when we talk about goals, you have short-term goals, which are within the next 6 months to a year. And short-term goals are things that we budget for. Medium-term goals, that's 1 to 2 years. And that's typically things that we save for. We're saving for a down payment on a house. We're saving for a down payment on a car. What's another reason that we want to have savings set aside? Emergencies. That is huge because we'll find out at the end how, some different emergencies can definitely put a crunch on the budget. When I was in high school, and they don't really do this anymore, but when I was in high school, I actually had a budgeting class. We learned how to do, balance our checkbook and all that kind of fun stuff. And the teacher would come around with a jar that had little slips of paper in it, and we would pull out a slip of paper, and it would say, you got a bonus this week, and you get $25 extra in your paycheck. Woohoo! And then Susie might pick, you got a flat tire, and you need to buy a new tire, and this is how much it's going to cost. So it really was a great lesson in, oh my goodness, where does that money come from? So we'd have to figure out how to cover emergencies. And if we didn't have that emergency savings, where do we turn? Oftentimes to credit cards. And that's not the ideal situation. We want to try to build up savings. And then long-term goals, that's going to be 5 years or more, and that's typically things that you would invest for. But we're going to focus on just the short term, on the budgeting. So, 5 steps to creating a successful budget. And some of this I'm going to go through kind of quick because again, this is stuff that most of you are probably already doing. The first thing that you're going to do is list all of your income sources. And you'll see on page 5, there's actually a sample sheet here where you can, kind of do this, and gives you some ideas of, well, where's that income coming from? Is it salary? Is it Social Security? Is it child support? Anything like that. So when you're listing your pay, do you list gross pay or do you list net pay? And you know what the difference is, right? Gross pay is before taxes, before Uncle Sam gets his hand in there and all that other stuff comes out. And net is what's left over. I always think that's misnamed, but it's kind of gross to see what you get, right? Anyway, sorry, bad joke. So which do you use, your gross pay or your net pay? And again, I would say there's no wrong answer here. If you use gross pay, one of your expense categories or several of your expense categories needs to be taxes, insurance, any deductions that you have, because if you plan your budget on your gross pay and you don't show those items as expenses, your budget's not going to work. But the reason that I even talk about using gross pay, and I use my sister for an example of this, she didn't have any savings in place. Her idea of savings was she had Uncle Sam withhold more taxes than what she needed to. So she knew that every year she would get back, $2,400, $2,500. If she worked with somebody so she wasn't getting back so much, that could have been money that she had automatically going into a savings account. So when her son, had something that he needed, or if she had a flat tire and needed to replace the tire, she would have had access to that money. But by letting Uncle Sam kind of be the forced savings account, that's not money she could hold on to. So her only option was, I guess I need to put it on a credit card. So that's why I say if you use gross, make sure you show that other stuff as expenses. You certainly can use net, because that just kind of makes it easier. That's some other little expenses that you don't have to list. Determine what your monthly expenses are. So we have 3 kinds of expenses: fixed, variable, and periodic. Give me an example of some fixed expenses. House payment. Car payment. Gasoline, how?
It takes so much to get back and forth.
Okay, it's probably going to be a little bit more variable because it depending on what the gas prices are today, tomorrow, a week from now. That would be more variable. Your fixed expenses are going to be the same amount every month. You know this is what it is. A variable expense would be probably more like gasoline, groceries, utilities. Now, you can take some of your variable expenses and make them fixed expenses. Anybody on any, like, I can't remember even what they call them, like the equalizer plan, so, budget plan. So no matter what, even if it's 110 degrees out, I pay this much for electric. Even if it's 50 degrees out, I pay this much for electric. It's the same amount every month. And usually they like you to be in the residence for a year, or at least have a year of history before they can set that budget amount. But man, that makes it so much easier to plan than having, you know, a $50 electric bill and then a $300 electric bill. That can create some challenges. So you can turn some variable expenses into fixed expenses. What would be some periodic expenses? Insurance. I pay my insurance every 6 months. Taxes, if you don't have it rolled into your mortgage payment. You normally pay those, what, once, twice a year? Once a year? This is another one that I say you can turn into a fixed expense if you want. Because I know I certainly hated getting that, you know, every 6 months getting that or I guess it was about $1,200, $1,300 insurance bill. I went, oh, wait. So I had my account set up where every month automatically from my checking account I had a set amount going into my savings account. So every 6 months when that insurance bill arrived, I went, here's the money for that. It's sitting in my savings. So that way you're still seeing the deduction on a monthly basis. But you know, you got to be careful not to dip into the savings and take your insurance payment away. Okay. The next part really just has kind of some guidelines of, you know, where your spending will be. And I'll tell you, this really, really is a guideline because if you're not married, you don't have kids, you know, that's going to change what somebody who is married and has young kids might pay for certain things. You know, if I'm a soccer mom and I'm running kids to school and soccer and wherever and working full time, and my transportation bill is probably going to be pretty crazy. Maybe some of you carpool, so that transportation item is going to look a lot less. So this is just a guideline for you. So we've got our income, we've got our expenses. Next we need to balance the budget. Okay, on that little worksheet, when we list our income and we list our expenses, our income minus our expenses, this number right here should be 0. If income is less than expenses, what do we need to do? Either get a second job or cut expenses, right? I mean, something's got to give. At least nobody said, you pull out the credit card. What about if income is more than expenses? Throw a party, right? No. Maybe put more into savings or more into investments. Because, you know, that we've heard that rainy day fund, right? Never rains in Arizona. We don't need a rainy day fund. Okay, so if your income is more than expenses, count yourself very fortunate. Put a little away for later. Hi. No, come on in. Now, the next part, step 4. This is the trickiest part. And I will tell you, this is the area where most people, and I will count myself into this category, this is where most of us fail. It's tracking expenses. How do you track your expenses? Do you guys have systems set up now? Anybody want to share how they track expenses?
Credit card.
Credit card? Okay. How else might you track your expenses? Anybody use like Quicken or Microsoft Money, any computer programs? Okay. Is he real good about putting all the expenses in there?
Yeah, once in a while he'll show me where I've gone a little bit over on it.
he uses that to say, oh, honey.
Yeah, you need to stop spending.
Yeah. Nice. Have you ever heard of the receipt method or the envelope method? There's a couple different ways that you can do this, and I definitely say if there's an area, you know, we talked about like areas where you maybe like to spend money. I'll pick on Susie again. We know Susie likes to spend on shoes. So if her budget, if she says, well, I want to try to control that area of my spending, so I'm not going to spend more than $100 a month on shoes. She's like, oh, that's not nearly enough. She might take an envelope, and I'm telling you, I used to be a financial advisor, and I've had clients do this, and it works very well. You take an envelope, and you either put $100 in there, or you write $100 on there, and when you go buy a pair of shoes, you put the receipt in there, or you take the money out of there, you subtract it from $100. What happens when there's no money left in that envelope, or it says 0 on the front? Do you steal from another envelope? Your spending is done in that area. And that's where the discipline kicks in. Because if you steal from another envelope, what are you really doing? You're stealing from yourself. You're really messing up your budget. Now, what I recommend is when you set up your budget, if you see, you know, a couple months in, man, $100 a month just isn't going to do it. I do have some room over here. You know, maybe I'm willing to make an adjustment down the road and change that budget amount. But be very, very careful of that. And, you know, on the worksheet, we list just a bunch of different categories. These aren't going to apply necessarily to everybody. You can, you know, there may be some categories that you want to add. One category that I want to caution you on is miscellaneous. If your miscellaneous category becomes more than 10% of your budget, you probably need to look at that category a little bit closer. What is in that miscellaneous? Is it, you know, magazine subscriptions? Is it trips to Starbucks? Is it vending machine? Maybe we need to break that out into some other categories. If that miscellaneous category, because miscellaneous is the catch-all, isn't it? Oh, what'd you buy? Just throw that under miscellaneous. See, again, I'm seeing grins, so that tells me, yeah, okay, you guys have done that before. I've done it too. Whatever method you use to track your expenses, and we put some worksheets in here. The next few pages, if you want to track what you spend on a daily basis, I challenge you guys to do this for 1 week. Write down every single penny that you spend for 1 week. You will be amazed. Somebody's going, no, I don't want to know. This is where, you know, again, it all comes out. But you can track here. We've got sheets in here for daily expenses. We've got sheets in here for weekly expenses and monthly expenses. Whatever system you use to track your spending, make sure it's easy. Because if it's not easy, you're not going to stick with it. I mean, again, I kind of go back to the whole diet thing. If it's not easy, if it's not convenient, If it's difficult to do, we're not going to stick with it. It's the same thing when it comes to budget and tracking your expenses. Like I said, this is the area where most people just do not do this very well. I track all my big expenses really good. I have a big miscellaneous category. Like I said, I admit it. And step 5, review and communicate. Again, if you're not the only one in the household that is working on this budget, see, I could pick on you and say, now, so when your husband comes back and says, oh, you're spending too much, this is when you sit down and you communicate, you know, what's going on. Let's look at the budget together. And I'll tell you, my husband was in the military. I pretty much have always handled our finances. And that was largely because if he deployed somewhere or whatever, I was the one that was paying the bills anyway. I can't tell you how many times my husband has said, I just have no idea where any of our money goes. Really? What a shocker. This is something, and I'm just as guilty. I mean, we really need to sit down and go, okay, here's what our bills are. Because it does come back to haunt you too. Because when I talk about how much it takes just to maintain the household, he is blown away by that. He does not realize how much it takes just to maintain the household. So you need to sit down and have a discussion about that. Remember that your budget is a living document. It's gonna change. Use pencil if you're writing it down. I mean, don't be afraid to change it because, like I said, I used to always say life happens along the way. It really does. We change jobs. You know, we get raises. Hopefully we don't get demotions. But, you know, if you lose a job or whatever, all of that definitely impacts the budget. So you've got to be able to make adjustments. It changes. Another thing that will happen when you are going through these steps is I had an assistant that worked with me who came in one day and she goes, I just don't understand this. We've got a really good budget, but our credit card balances are going up every month. I don't understand why this is happening. I said, okay, bring in your budget. Let's, you know, we'll review it. So I sat down with her and her husband. They had this great budget that they put together in Microsoft Money, you know, how much they were going to spend. And he had in the budget $200 a month to spend on kind of like eating lunches out or visiting the snack bar or whatever at work. And I said, okay, are you tracking your expenses? She said, oh yeah, we put everything into Microsoft Money. Every time they write a check, use a debit card, whatever, they put everything in the tracking part of Microsoft Money. I said, okay, let me see that. And we compared the two. He budgeted $200 for snacks and food and whatever. He was spending closer to $400. The better your tracking is, the easier it is to find spending leaks. Right there was easy $200 that I found that I said, well, where's that extra $200 coming from? It wasn't coming from any other place in the budget. So once you lay out your budget and once you really fine-tune your tracking, whatever your system is, those spending leaks, some of them may become glaringly obvious. And you go, wow, didn't realize I was spending that much. Okay, so you really want to watch the tracking. Okay, any questions about what it takes to put a budget together? Anything new there? That's all kind of stuff that we know, right? Yeah, the discipline part I left out. That's the part you were supposed to bring yourself. I know. And again, we all, I can't stress enough, we all have challenges with this. And I'll share I'll share my personal, something I absolutely was not willing to give up, but I was feeling guilty about it, so I thought, well, how can I cut my expenses here? I love fountain soda. I have a Diet Coke, 44-ounce Diet Coke, every morning. There's a Sonic right down the street from my house. So every morning I would go by the Sonic, get me a big 44-ounce soda. It's $2.20-ish for a 44-ounce soda. Well, and of course, you know, the nice little person brings it out to me, so I'm going to give them a little bit of a tip. So $2.50, $2.75, whatever. Every day. Yes, I do tend to be a big tipper. But I could spend up to $3 a day. That's nuts. And I even admit that. So one day I thought, okay, this is ridiculous, because I wrote down, if I'm spending $3 a day times 5 days a week, because I'd only do it when I was going to work, times 5 days a week, that's $15 a week, $60 a month, just on a 44-ounce soda. So I thought, well, okay, I'm not willing to give up the soda, but how can I save money? Guess what I do now? I stop at the convenience store on the way to work, I get out of my vehicle, I walk in, and I pay $1 for a soda instead of being lazy and spending $2 more than I need to. So that's even something that I can go, I'm not giving up that thing, because that's, again, these are all personal decisions. I didn't want to give up my soda in the morning because it really does help me get going, but it was an area that I cut quite a bit of expense out just by getting out of my car and going in and getting my soda. Did you have a question or a comment?
I was just gonna say, well, why don't you go to like Sam's Club, stop, and then you just.
Because I like fountain soda.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I know, I know. I had somebody else ask me that. I know, I'm really, it's bad. That's just my,
Well, what's fountain soda? Just comes
That's my-
out of the fountain? It's different
yeah,
than
it
what's-
tastes different than what's in the
tastes
can.
different, okay.
To me it does. But I mean, again, you know, we all have things. How many of you like Starbucks? Think about that. We all have these little things that we like to spend money on. So even look at some of those areas and say, you know, am I having a couple Starbucks every day? I used to work with the Air Force recruiters next door here, and our flight chief, she'd have 2-3 Starbucks a day. She was bouncing off the walls. And I mean, that's just a large expense every day. So there's lots of areas where you can cut expenses. So looking at some practical money saving tips, and I know you guys can probably throw some out here too, but if you're paying down debt, let's say you're paying off credit cards. If you have 2 or 3 credit cards, how do you want to pay those off? Do you want to make minimum payments on all of them? Or do you want to pay a little bit more than minimum payment on all of them? How do you want to pay those off? Start with your highest interest one. Obviously, you have to make your minimum payments on all of them, but any extra money, put all of that towards the highest interest one. Then when that one's paid off, go to the next highest interest one. That is the most efficient way to pay down your debt. Sometimes it just, you know, people go, but I feel good if I'm paying more than minimum payment on all of mine. The most efficient way to do it is to do the highest interest one first. How about bundling products? Do you know what I mean by that? You've got phone, internet, cable through one company, or homeowners, car, life insurance through one company. Sometimes by bringing those types of products together, you can save some money because you've got all of them with that one company. How many of you shop for credit cards or any of your other financial products? You know, the 0% interest for 6 months, then what do they charge? What other fees are associated? Are there late fees? What kind of grace period do you get? You really should be looking at even those types of financial products and choosing products that make sense for you. There are We do a class with, well, we've done it a few times with teens, where we print out the small print, and we have them walk through and say, okay, if you take that credit card and you go to an ATM and you put it in the machine and you take a cash advance, do you pay the same interest rate on that as you do for a purchase? And they'll look over, oh, no, they're charging me 26% because, you know, for a cash advance versus 18% for a purchase. Those are things you want to look at and make sure that you're getting a good deal on your financial products too. Bank fees, you know, are you, you know, paying for a checking account? Are you paying for overdraft fees? What kinds of, you know, there's lots of accounts out there, and some of them, you know, will say, okay, if you have this minimum balance, then it's a free checking account. Some of them have no minimum balance, and it's a free checking account. Some will rebate ATM fees, some won't. So those are things that you want to be comparing, because when you add those up at the end of the month, that can be amazing. We have an account that pays a dividend, plus it rebates all of the ATM fees. So I don't even pay attention anymore. Every ATM in the world, well, at least in the US, is my ATM. I go up and it says, oh, we're going to charge you $2.50, and I say, I don't care, because I'm getting it back at the beginning of the next month. It's really neat on the first of the month to look at that, and I see $9, $10, $15 that I'm getting rebated. There are other people that are paying those fees and not getting rebated, so look at your accounts. Those are things that can definitely, you know, give you a little extra money in your pocket. Any other money-saving tips there that you guys can think of? Did I cover? Are there any that? Okay. Small changes that you can make, and I'm really upset with myself because I didn't bring these little examples that we have. I love to eat out, dining, you know, dinner, lunch. We eat lunch out a lot. What if you eat out one less evening a week? How does that impact? You know, what kind of money can you save essentially doing that? I wish I could remember. We had this great example. If you dine out one night less a week and take that money and save it at 5% over 20 years, it was like $43,000 or some insane amount. And I just sit there and go, wow. Again, we don't look at things like that. We just go, you know, it's $20 here, $20 there. Somebody said something about getting a part-time job. If you don't want to cut expenses, that's definitely something you might want to look at. I gave you my little drink less soda example. I don't drink less, I just change what I do. What about the good old library? Borrowing books, borrowing videos instead of buying. That's always an option. Here's one that I definitely want to tell you about. We have Visit Westside Food Bank. For those of you who don't know, Westside Food Bank has a program called the Food Value Club, and you can find information on their website. The Food Value Club, we were doing a thing at the Wigwam, and the St. Mary's Food Bank person was at the next table. And I just kept listening to her all day talk about this program. Because I thought, well, you know, I'm probably not going to go to the food bank because there's that stigma of, well, it's for lower income or whatever. Not true. The food bank has a program, this Food Value Club, where you can purchase different boxes. For example, they have a pantry box that has canned goods, you know, vegetables, whatever. There's about 15 items in the box, and it's like $13. With that box, you get what's called a bonus box, which is just, you never know what you're going to get. It's a bonus. It could be milk, eggs, vegetables, bread, I mean, all kinds of stuff. They have meat boxes. They had like a meat lovers box that had 8 different kinds of meat in it, and that was $30, I think. And with the purchase of the meat lovers, you got 2 bonus boxes. We, we're listening to this spiel all day, and they said it is open to anybody. There's no income requirement, and I especially say if you've got a big household, man, what a great way to make your grocery dollar go a little bit further. So we thought, okay, before we recommend this to anybody, we want to try this out and see how this program works. And I am not exaggerating. There were 2 of us at work that said, well, I'm going to get the pantry box, and somebody else said, I'm going to get the meat lovers box. So we got 2 boxes plus 3 bonus boxes. I drive a little Honda CR-V, and that vehicle was packed with food. Everything they get into St. Mary's Food Bank, they have 48 hours to turn around. By you buying those boxes, it actually gives them cash, which allows them to keep buying in bulk, which allows them to get much better pricing. So you actually help the food bank out by purchasing these boxes. So I would encourage you, if you want to look at stretching your grocery dollar, we were blown away by how much stuff we had. We stacked it all up in the office. We were taking pictures. People were walking by going, why do you guys have all this food? We said, we were so excited about the program. It really is pretty neat. So again, especially if you know anybody that has a large family, shoot, that's the way to go. That Food Value Club was pretty cool.
And of course, the 99-cent stores. I'm all twisted around here, but I think down on, I don't know the streets well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one that has all sorts of fresh fruit on it, and it's wonderful. We've got pomegranates for 2 for $1.
Yeah.
99 or whatever.
Yeah. One of our coworkers, she's been turned on to the 99-cent store. She had no idea that they had produce and stuff there. And so she goes in and she's like, wow, look what I got. I mean, I'm telling you, she'll bring stuff into work because she'll go over during her lunch break, and she'll come in and she's like, look at all this stuff I got. It's really kind of cool. So, think outside the box. There are some things that you think, oh, well, you wouldn't think about produce at the 99-cent store, but you can save a lot of money.
Yeah, well, some of the 99s don't, but the one over by, there's a Suzuki dealer over here.
Yeah, right there at Van
Is it a
Buren.
new one? Is it a new store?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I've only been here a year, so I don't know what the.
And new is relative, right?
It's relative,
Yeah.
but it's on,
Probably
again,
Van
I don't
Buren.
know what the street is. I apologize.
Yeah.
But,
Well, and they have name brand items in there too. I mean, some of it's off-brand stuff, but some of it's name brand stuff too that you can get pretty inexpensively.
There's a cookbook that on Rachel Ray's show that was 99-cent store cookbook, and this lady cooks only their food or uses their products to make these like gourmet items, and she has a cookbook out.
Yeah.
Shopping from the 99-cent store cookbook. It was really amazing.
Yeah. I think when you start getting into that stuff, you'll be surprised. And it's so funny because I watched this one coworker of ours, and she's really got into the coupon clipping. And there are different clubs that you can get into where some of them, it'll have like a small monthly fee that you pay, but they match up the coupons with the store ads. So you're not running all over the place trying to figure out, okay, well, with this ad and this coupon, she'll bring in a couple bags of stuff and say, I paid $1.50 for all this because the coupon matches up with the ads, the paper ads, and they tell you all that information. So those are programs that you can look into. How many of you love rebates?
My husband, I don't think he's ever paid more than half price for any electronic anything because he sends rebates.
I am so good with my rebates. If I have some, you better believe, okay, I will do this in triplicate, whatever you have to do, jump through hoops to get that rebate. What's so fun about it, I think for me, is I always forget that I mail it off, but I keep copies of all the receipts. But it's really neat when you get that check in the mail and you go, oh, because usually it takes like 8 weeks or 12 weeks or something. But it's like a little extra, oh, look what I forgot I did,
And I did on my son's is I hate rebates. I hate it. And so what I do is I bring it home to them, and each of the boys, you know, maybe it's on oil or one week and something on
Yeah.
another. I'd say, if you guys do the paperwork of it, you'll get the rebate.
That's a great idea.
And then also, not only that, they love to get the mail, because I hate to get mail because it's billed. They love to get the mail because they don't get it as
Yeah.
a young kid.
Yeah,
And so that's been fun for them, and
that's a great
give them
idea.
few.
That's a great idea. Because then it also teaches them about rebates and what you have to do to get them. So I would guess maybe as they grow older, you know, it'll be interesting to see what they do, you know, if they do the same thing with their kids or.
They'll do much better than I.
Yeah.
I was watching Inside Edition this week, and there was a website, Freebies for Moms.
Mhm.
I went on, and there's all these free things that you could get. It was like amazing. You could get granola bars for free, and detergent, and coffee. I was like psycho. I was like logged on to everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm now just waiting.
Now
for my
waiting.
mail.
Now you're waiting. Yeah, excited to get your mail, waiting for all the free stuff.
There's
Well,
a lot out there.
yeah, and again, like with this coupon program that our coworker does, it's almost becoming. I don't want to say an addiction, but no, but I mean it's you get really excited. I mean, she loves to be standing in line, and it'll say, "Oh, you've saved, you know, $50," and people behind her are going, "Man, the most I know I'm one of those. The most I ever save is like $3, $4, and here, you know, how are you saving $50 with all these coupons?" But that's what some of those programs can really do for you. We had a girl come in and set all this stuff on the table, and she's like, "Oh yeah, through this coupon program, I paid, you know, $1.75 for all these items," and some of them were, you know, medication, lotions, just everything, baby wipes. And some of it is stuff that she wouldn't necessarily use, but then she uses it and kind of, you know, has a neighbor that they swap items and whatever. It's amazing what you can do. And I love this one. When you go to the grocery store, you don't go shopping when you're hungry. I will stop and make a point to grab a little snack or something because I definitely notice a difference in the grocery bill. And if I take my husband along, he's really bad just because he goes, "Oh, well, we've never tried this." I make a list. I stick to my list. When I take him with me, forget it. He finds all kinds of, he's an impulsive shopper. I laugh at him. I tell him he's an advertiser's dream. Especially like when we go, we can't go to the base exchange unless we go down the golf aisle. And there's this one golf ball, it's called like the Freak or something, and it's like crazy long or whatever the fun words are that are on the box. He's like, "Oh man, I gotta get some of those." Advertising messages, he just soaks them right up. Okay, so pitfalls that can destroy your spending. We covered some of this, but emergencies in general, repair bills. If you don't have emergency savings, again, what are you going to do? Run to a credit card. And in our very first class, for some of the new people, I shared if you have a $2,000 balance on a credit card that is charging 18%, and you are only making minimum payments on that credit card, any idea, not for the ones that have been here before and already know the answer to this, any idea how long it'll take you to pay that off? 29 years. Think about that before you start pulling out the credit card. So get that emergency savings build up. And I also, if you have the option of automatic deduction, like from your paycheck, automatically going into a savings account or automatically having money go from your checking into your savings account, set it up automatically. Because if you have to sit down and go, "Oh, let me take this out of here for savings," what usually happens? You pay all your bills, and if there's anything left over, you go, "Oh, okay, this month I can put this much in savings." You got to treat it like any other expense. Pay yourself first, set it up automatically. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? If you have it automatically going into your savings and you run into some little hiccup, some little emergency,
You just transfer it back.
you just transfer it back. That's what it's there for. Okay? Auto accidents, parking tickets, or speeding tickets. You know, they got all those nice cameras up now. I am so good now. I've already got my 2 speeding tickets. So, change jar. Anybody have a change jar at home? I will share with you. I had a giant, so you guys will see my soda addiction coming out. My whole kitchen's decorated Coca-Cola. I had a giant Coca-Cola bank that I would just throw money in all the time, change. So I took it into one of our branches, dumped it all in the change machine. $460 in change. Janet has me beat though. How much was in your change jar?
$484.
Now, that's a big change jar. But set up a change jar for, you know, maybe that's a vacation fund. Maybe that's whatever. That can be some ad money.
Are there, I'm sorry, go ahead.
When you do it at the credit union or at your bank, do they charge you for that? Like, you know, when you send.
Some places do. We only have one branch that has a coin machine in it, which happens to be on base. So if you don't have access to the base, but we don't charge to use the thing. But you're right, some places will charge. Again, that might be a fun activity for kids. Hey, let's roll some coins. Let's count some coins.
I was going to ask the same question.
Oh,
So I
see,
agree.
look at that, great minds think alike. Yeah, some places will charge you, and again, personal decision. Do you want to give up? I don't even know what they charge.
10%.
10%? Do you want to give up? Wow. Oh, 3. I know, yeah, there was another credit union that we saw that was charging like 3%.
The
So.
Coinstar or whatever it's called, like, the last one I used to have, the Albertsons, I think, was like 8 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
I thought Wells Fargo had a flat rate. I don't recall what it is.
Yeah, I'm not.
Regardless of what amount you had.
Which, if you got a big change jar, that might be the way to go. Again, fun activity. Call over the neighbors. Hey, let's count some money. I'm just kidding. No, change jar can be a pretty cool thing. If you guys have one of those fun little habits like I do with the soda, again, even picking one area, go down through here and track how much you spend. Let's say whether it's soda or, I heard somebody say lunch. If you eat lunch out every day, on average you spend, you know, I'd say $5 a day, but I know we're spending more than that. That's bad. Write in what you spend a day. Multiply that out. You guys probably don't want to see what some of these figures become. I see a lot of grids now going, mm-hmm. I'd ask you to share. I don't want to embarrass anybody. I'd say, anybody else have any bad habits like me? my soda addiction. Okay, there is a free software program if you guys want to use a budgeting program. If you're, you know, again, whatever way you use to track your spending, it's got to be easy or you won't stick to it. But we do have a free budgeting software called Budget Smart. There's step-by-step instructions on here how to go to our website and download it. It's pretty neat. It will do those little things like you put in what your income is, and it'll, under the different categories, it'll give you the recommended, okay, we recommend don't spend more than 20% in this area. So you plug in those numbers, and after you put your income and your expenses in there, it will show you if your income's more than your expenses or your expenses are more than your income. It'll show you that it doesn't balance. And then you start putting that tracking piece in there, and it does little charts and all that kind of fun stuff too. But that is a program that you guys are welcome to download for attending class tonight. You can go in and do that. So any questions on budgeting, anything that you guys maybe wanted to have answered tonight other than discipline that we didn't answer?
I probably missed that part, but when you're talking about income, you're talking about your net income.
Yeah, if you use gross income, you just want to make sure that you list like taxes, insurance, whatever deductions you have coming out of your check, you want to make sure those are listed as expense items. So you can use either one, but if you use net, then you don't have to worry about putting those other expenses in there.